Okay, so we're live now. So yeah, so again, just want to say a big welcome to everybody. And Luke, shall we talk about kind of like what the plan is for these kind of making an impact sessions going forward before we introduce the panel?
No problem. I think me and Mark were talking about the community group involvement, the level of impact, and some of the different experiences we've had over time as we've got involved as youth group leaders and beyond. And I think there's so much good that happens within the community that we wanted to provide a platform where people can come and share their story, tell us about what they're doing, what they're up to, what drives them, what motivates them, in the hope that it could inspire other people either to do a bit more, that are just getting started. We think there's a great opportunity to showcase what's happening in the community. I think people put an awful lot of time, of their own time, above and beyond jobs, families, and kids to do some great things. So we thought, what a great platform to bring some people on to share that story, to take some questions, to give some advice. And then I think it's gone from there, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically the whole idea of this is basically we just want to hear stories from the community and stories that can be used to encourage and inspire other people to get more involved in the community. So whether that's a story of how you got involved in, say, mentorship, or whether it's like, golden hoodie, for example, whatever the story is, we want to kind of hear that, and that's the idea for these sessions going forward. So we're actually kicking it off tonight with a panel, and we're doing the second of these events in October with a panel as well. We'll talk a bit more about that towards the end. So this one, we've got at the moment 4 speakers, but hopefully we'll have all 5 in at some point during the call. Unfortunately, with technical issues, we'll try and do what we can to make that work. But what we thought we would maybe do is kind of, as the first question, to ask the panelists to kind of go around and introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are, what they do, and maybe kind of like a little bit about how they got involved in the community. So happy to pass it over to the panelists, or we can kind of go see who wants to go first, and then we can pass around. Shall we start with you, Jonathan, since you're looking at me smiling?
It was one of those situations where nobody wanted to come off mute first. Everyone being super humble. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Jonathan Fox. I'm a senior technical consultant at I've met or virtually every person, a lot of you before, from when I was part of a company in the north of England, a Salesforce partner. I'm an 18-time certified system and application architect. I was a group leader, platform champion, and a bunch of other stuff in the Trailblazer community until I made it to Salesforce. Obviously, you can't be a group leader when you're at Salesforce, unfortunately. Much to my sadness, really. I thoroughly enjoyed being a group leader. However, it's an absolute pleasure to come back and still be a part of the community by being a guest or even just an attendee to the group. So thank you very much for inviting me.
No problem at all. Thanks, Jonathan. Janet, would you like to go next?
I'd love to. Thank you so much for inviting me. Janet Elliott. I am in California, USA. I may be the only American on the call, which is exciting. It's one of the reasons I love the community, is the international calls are like my favorite. Let's see. I've been in the ecosystem about 10 years. Just recently started a new job as a solution architect at Kickoff, which is a small consulting partner. Really exciting because that was one of my goals, and I can talk a little bit about how the community helped me get there, because it's like the community was a huge factor in that. Let's see. I'm the Women in Tech Community Group leader here, co-founder Salesforce Saturday. Just really involved in the community both locally and through Twitter and coming to user groups and stuff like that. So super excited to be here and talk to everybody.
Fantastic. Go on, Mark, you can pick the next one.
Great. So shall we go with, well, it seems we've kind of gone more or less in alphabetical order. Shall we go with Karat next?
I'm sure everybody is wondering how to say my name, so I'll start from there. So it is Kuratulen. It is actually a peculiar name. It's from the Arabic text, but you can call me Kurat. It's like a carrot with a Q or a Q if you're feeling lazy. So I am from Islamabad, Pakistan. Really excited to be here today. I sweating, but I thought, okay, let's turn on the video so everybody knows I'm not a fake image on Twitter. I'm a person. So I work from Islamabad with a UK-based ISV partner. I have been in the ecosystem for 4 years this month. Um, and initially, I'm kind of a very you know always in a anxiety of panic attack, but I have made good progress in the Salesforce ecosystem primarily because of how welcoming and supportive the community is, and I wanted to kind of extend um, that platform to everybody else in my local community who don't even know what is the S of Salesforce. So I've been doing my different initiatives in my personal capacity. I have mentored couple of people locally who are working in the Salesforce community right now, and also whoever I can. I've made a lot of friends through Twitter. I've realized that I am, although I'm not a content creator, but I'm a good motivator. So I use that to kind of cheer everybody up around me. And also, I am the co-founder of Pakistan Dreaming, which is the first streaming
Nice.
event happening from Pakistan next month, and also a user group leader for the Women in Tech group, the first one from Pakistan. A lot of firsts, and I'll be soon hitting up a series where I'll be mentoring the women around me who are not aware of Salesforce yet, but I hope they would be able to kind of launch their careers like I was able to do it. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's great. Thanks, Karat. And last but not least, Rohan, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rohan Singh. So I'm from India. So I have around 2 years of experience in Salesforce ecosystem, and I'm working in Accenture as a Salesforce developer. So I'm working in mainly integrations, LWC, Service Cloud, and Community Cloud. So seeing all these very familiar faces that I see every day around Twitter and LinkedIn is great because I look up to them. I feel very much encouraged and motivated by them. So to be in the same space as them is really encouraging and really good for me. So yeah, so Salesforce community has been a big part of my life. Like before entering into Salesforce, like I had a lot of doubts, like what exactly this platform is all about. But when I entered into it, I explored it, then I found out that it is a lot more than a simple CRM tool. Like you can do almost everything with it now. Like you can integrate it with a number of services and you can build your apps and everything. So it is great. And I try to be give the same kind of mentorship, same kind of guidance that my mentors gave me when I wanted their help to the newcomers in the community. So I have enrolled myself as a Trailblazer mentor. I was selected as a MuleSoft and Capado mentor as well. So yeah, I try to give back as much as I can, and I'm hoping to start, and I'm working towards starting my own Salesforce user group. And yeah, like Salesforce like is pretty big for me. And yeah, so Jonathan just like told me one new thing that once you are in Salesforce, then you cannot be a community group leader. So yeah, so I have to think about how to how to make an impact. Yeah.
That's great.
Brilliant.
So,
I think
so
it's
yeah.
encouraging already. We've definitely got some community rock stars with us here. I think it's really good. I mean, prior to this, just to get prepped, we asked all the guys to fill in some questions for us. We won't sort of start there, but there's some really interesting things that come across from all of them, which hopefully we'll dig into across the panel. But I think what's great, even from your short responses, what's really positive is everybody wanting to give back to the community. You know, it's interesting. We've been asking about how you got started and what it gives to you, but isn't it brilliant? Like, or altruistically, you'll pass on what you'll know. You'll share some experience. You might give some advice. How cool is that? You know, from nothing really. Again, in our free and voluntary time. So, thanks all for the introductions, and really glad to have everybody here.
That's great. And I think it looks like we've got JB connected. So, JB, if you're able to unmute, do you want to see if you can unmute and introduce yourself as well?
We'll put you right on the spot, JB. Sorry, just as you joined. Apologies.
Can you confirm you're able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So I am Jyotsna Vitra. I go by the name JB, and I have been in the ecosystem for around like 10 plus years, and I am an accidental admin, and I bounced upon Marketing Cloud, and then I made Marketing Cloud my full-time job. And I really love all things Marketing Cloud, and I'm active in the community. I started my user group leader journey as a Salesforce admin, and then I found the need. There was no group focused on the Marketing Cloud in Phoenix, so I founded the marketers group, and then I grew it to be like 1,000+ members team now. And I have conducted various boot camps that are related to the Marketing Cloud certifications, and all of them were very well received. And many people still reach out to me saying that the bootcamp really helped us, help them in their certifications. And I get requests that people want to get mentorship from me, and I take one-on-one calls. And besides this, I also founded an Impact Force series. It's all the sessions focused on improving the soft skills. So we all need soft skills to go further in our career. The technical skills can help us to land in that job, but if we want to progress in our career, the soft skills really play an important role. That's the reason I founded the Impact Force, and I've been conducting some sessions that are related to the soft skills. And I also conduct some BAM sessions, and I help the homemaker, the women who take a break in their careers, to start with Salesforce. I get them to some modules in the Trailhead, progress in their journey, and then get certifications and landing their dream jobs. So recently recognized by the Salesforce with a Golden Hoodie winner. And I continue to give back to the community in whatever way possible. And I'm so glad that I'm able to share the panel with all of you guys.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, JB, and it's great to have everybody who's here on the panel. I'll be quite honest to say, for quite a few people who's on the panel that I've known for a bit longer than others that I've really looked up to, many of you for such a long time, and those who I don't know as well. You know, that there's doing our research, looking into these, I'm kind of like going, wow, these are really great people. You know, so of everyone on the panel is like really great people, and it's great to have you all with us. Before we kind of like go through into some of the other questions, one thing I do want to quickly mention is an admin point is if anybody who is here on the call has a question for the panel, please simply just kind of let us know in some way, whether that's putting something in the chat or turn your video on and give us a wave or something like that. Basically, we want to give you the floor to ask questions during this time. We don't have any in the chat right now, but we would love to see if you've got anything you want to ask to raise as well. And Paul mentioned wave. Yep. So you can, that works. That works. Yeah. So in terms of kind of like diving into the community, because we've all talked about, like, all of us are on the call, will no doubt love the community, and all of us who are involved in either hosting the event or on the panel, we all love the community. But one thing I kind of wanted to put out there was, if say someone's coming in who is new and has no idea where to begin with getting involved in the community, what would you recommend to them? And this could be open to anybody to answer.
I can take a shot at that. I think for me, I sort of remember before being involved in the community and after being involved in the community. So I've only been involved in the community, I guess maybe it's 3 or 4 years now. And the way I started was I went to a local Dreaming event that we had here in Sacramento, and it just really opened my eyes. So if somebody's new, I would suggest finding that local user group leader and connecting with them. It's hard because if you're introverted, it's hard to reach out sort of unknowingly to people. It's a little bit of a, jump for some people, but connecting with people locally is your first step. Of course, I'm going to say Twitter because I'm like the biggest Twitter fan. And I know that when I tell people that, they are like, I don't know, Twitter, like, why would I do that? But I can't emphasize enough the relationships that you make with people on Twitter. Sounds strange. The people you meet, you start to get a vibe for what's going on in the community by following Twitter. And you can, it's a sort of a way to interact with people that doesn't take as much risk. If you're just starting out and you're just sort of putting the feelers out, you can start engaging with people on Twitter and, you start to get a feel. So local and social media, LinkedIn and Twitter as a way of starting to just put your toes in the water to start interacting with the community.
I would love to follow on from Janet's points there, if that's okay. So when I first, in fact, I was still in the British Army at this point. I was on some leave, and the had with the community was attending my local user group, which was in fact a women in tech group. I had no idea about Salesforce. In fact, I didn't even know much about women in tech either, the concept of women in tech, but I knew that this women in tech group was related to Salesforce and was related to the Trailblazer community. So I attended that. And just because I was a male in the British Army at this point, didn't mean I weren't welcome. In fact, I was more than, they welcomed me massively into that group. And I met so many wonderful people who pointed me in the direction of so many wonderful resources. In fact, if it wasn't for that group, it probably would have been a lot further down the line that I would have found out about Salesforce Military. And Salesforce Military was a massive impact for me and helped me kind of direct my learning path. If it weren't for that group, for someone who just happened to know about Salesforce Military, I don't think I would have found it. So the Trailblazer community, your local group, maybe you've never heard of Pardot or Marketing Cloud, still attend it because it's great just to meet these. That undoubtedly you'll meet time and time again from there on in your career. And then I've got to say as well, Twitter absolutely it's my favorite place. I never liked Twitter. In fact, I cringed every time I tweeted in the beginning. Now I love it. And some relationships I have on Twitter are just relationships where we send GIFs. We just post a GIF on a tweet. I probably people that I do that with, a couple of times, but we send more GIFs than we do actual tweets and messages. But it's a relationship and it's quite a fun one. And it's all getting to know personalities on the kind of Salesforce ecosystem in the world, but by Twitter, it's a great place to pick up on things.
And would like to add to this, and plus one to what Janet and Jonathan has mentioned. Jonathan, this is the first time we may be talking to each other live, but I know you from Twitter. I see you posting tweets. So Twitter and LinkedIn, that creates visibility for us and creates a brand. So to me, I would say we can get started as slow if you don't have the time. Just create some blog posts or create some informational posts on the LinkedIn and keep posting them. And as time permits, attend the user group meetings, and you can reach out to the user group leader if you're interested to take it further and present at the sessions. So starting from the user group meetings, once you gain the confidence, you can also present at dreaming events and get involved further. I started as a user group member. I used to attend the user group meetings regularly, and one day Gloria, who was the user group leader, she asked me if I can present, and I started with presenting one session, and later I continue to present, and then I was requested to come and join them as a co-leader. So I started as a Salesforce admin group co-leader, and then I founded the marketing group, and then Impact Force, and then the journey continued. So I started slow, and wherever a person is in the journey, they can get started, and whatever way that they can contribute, they can get involved.
Nice. I'm just going to follow you guys with some feedback as well, because we sort of asked some of these questions before, and I highlighted some bits, and it's really good about the same question. So if you're asking to recommend other things, so obviously Janet was saying as well, like it can feel intimidating because you think that everybody else is an expert, but that's not true. And there's such a range of experience in the community, and there's such levels of experience, and individually everyone's got a lot to add, which I think is a fantastic point. I think Rohan as well, about get involved in the community. He said the key is to be an active participant. There's so many events and meetups, so try to get involved. But again, this is important. Don't be afraid to voice your own views, even if you're not sure. Don't be afraid to ask a silly question. I think that's a good point. Jonathan raised as well about just because you come from a different background, perhaps to somebody else. There's such a wide spectrum of roles, you know, whether you're admin, a developer, an analyst, a moderator, a good talker, an enthusiast. I think, you know, don't be afraid to try to have to fit into one mold. I think that's really important. Let me have a look here. Yeah, and that's a good point that Kurat builds on, and saying about not trying to fit in the molds that others have for themselves. So try and celebrate individually what you look to bring to it. And I think from JB as well, never give up and don't hesitate to ask for help. You know, I think that's really important as well. And it's something when I first involved in the community, like it didn't feel real. I'd been in private sector in oil and gas before, and I was like, how can everyone be so helpful? You know, everyone was genuinely looking out for each other, willing to share something, to give you an answer to something or a different perspective. And it took me quite a long time, and I thought, it can't be real. It must, you know, like there's nothing to gain from it. But again, I think that's one of the things that's fueled my attraction to it. I went to Jonathan's first event in Leeds, and I thought, wow, this is cool. Like, why we need this in Newcastle, and wanted to bring that sort of locally, you know. And I think for me in the community, I'd engaged and changed my career path and changed my prospects from knowing about Salesforce with a lot of great resources. And my single objective with the community is, if I can set up a group, which we've now got with Mark, and somebody else can do that, someone realizes they can do something, that's really cool. So, you know, that's where I was coming from. But sorry to jump in there, but there's some great points that you guys made that I just wanted to share, summarize as well.
Yeah. Can I make a quick follow-up comment?
Sure.
I think back to before community and after. So I've been in the ecosystem for like 6 years, and I'd never thought of going to a user group meeting. It just seemed so intimidating, like talking about the spectrum of experience. I was sure that everybody I was just going to go and they were going to think that I didn't know anything. It was really intimidating. But what I found out, like I went to some events and saw people who are really big on Twitter. You know, people sort of worship these people, and they're like, oh my gosh, these people are the awesome Salesforce people. But when I met them, I'm like, these are just people just like me, doing their job. Everybody's got a different set of experiences. And getting to know some of the people who you would consider the well-known people in the Salesforce ecosystem, that's when it really set in, like, these people are super humble, really helpful, and they're just people just like me. So that was one of the things I kind of had to get over, and then start becoming more involved.
Nice.
I've got a question, if I may. It's particularly for Jonathan. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's because I've been following some of your journey, and I was like, oh, I ought to reach out to Jonathan. At some point I've connected on LinkedIn, but never really had a chat or anything. And then he got carted off to Salesforce before I could ensnare him in any of my plans. And you might have said this just now, maybe I didn't catch it. What point were you at mentally kind of in your life when you went to the Women in Tech group? What I missed the step before. You said you were interested in Salesforce. So my ex-housemate is military, so I'm just I'm missing the bit of string there. And it's really interesting that you went to Women in Tech, and that just kind of shows your personality, and I think that's awesome. But yeah, I'll shut up now. Over to you, if I may.
No, absolutely. And I think that transition is important for my story, but I think everyone on this panel probably has an equal transition from their previous life into the Salesforce one. So it might be a decent question, for everyone else to chip in. But for me personally, the British Army was fine. The job I did as military police was great fun while I was there, but it's, to me, a single person's lifestyle. I'd get to a Friday afternoon expecting to set off home, and my sergeant or my staff sergeant would say, "Nope, sorry, you're staying. You're on duties now for the weekend," and I'd be gutted, which was bad enough. But when me and my wife found out that she was pregnant, it really hit home at that point that I wanted to be at home to support her. And through the week I was away. So weekends were all that I got to come home. And especially when Evelyn was born, I didn't want to miss out on her crawling, her rolling over, her standing up, her walking. And a lot of these things happen through the week. You can't time a baby to do these things on a weekend when you're at home. So I'm at that point where I go, what do I do? What do I do coming out of the army? Skills have I got? What are transferable? Now, military is very, it's very disciplined. I was military police, so I had different ranks, explaining people's commanding officers and telling them why I'd just arrested one of their who was above me. And those skills work really well as a consultant, talking to people in company, executives, explaining why I'm going to tell you that you should use go down the Apex route and custom build something rather than using the declarative process, whatever you want to use. I mean, this time I know a role in tech. Tech's only ever going to get. It's only ever going to be at the forefront of. Actually, that by chance, my brother-in-law, an ISV partner at the time, said, "Well, you're interested in tech, come and see what I do." And I shadowed him for a little bit about, show me how these cool apps on Salesforce. From there, then when I got into it, Trailhead, Trailblazer Community, they're the real. You should get that. I hope
that's. Yeah, no, it's really insightful. And actually, after I asked you the question, it's definitely a suitable question for everyone, because for me, it's always about what motivates people, but then somehow I draw something from that so that when I talk to other people, because I'm also passionate about Salesforce, we know the ecosystem is thriving and there's more than enough work to go around. So it's about enabling and empowering people. So it's trying to work out these different perspectives. There's plenty of student opportunities, but it's trying to help people on those career changes, but also when people are ready to do things. And that readiness isn't just about when we're ready to step into Salesforce career, it's about everything we do in our own careers and when we're talking to people. And that's still the function that I'm trying to work out, that how to persuade people when you need to get them to do something, if they're a client, and it just, everything about your answer, there's a lot of complexity to it. So yeah, just thank you very much for sharing your story. And everyone else as well, because yeah, I am making notes.
You're more than welcome. I think it's a great question, but I personally, I know, but I would be quite interested to hear anyone else's journey into the Salesforce ecosystem, past and pre-life into the Salesforce ecosystem, just because, like, an important step and no I wonder if anyone else.
Go on, Mark. Go on. I didn't want to presume, but someone's backing me up. This is what I normally do at the other Newcastle. It's like, go on, Mark. Go on. Ask everyone else.
I'm with Paul and Jonathan here. If anybody else wants to kind of chip in with that, we'd love to hear that. That's kind of like what the idea for this kind of event is, to kind of hear these stories. And so, anybody else who would like to kind of share their side of that question.
I would like to add in, so for the first part, I think the question where you asked if somebody is joining in for the first time to the ecosystem, what they can do. So if they are in a situation I was in, like I didn't have any local user groups that I could reach out to, and the one that was in Pakistan was around 1,000 kilometers away, so I couldn't travel all the way there either. So my face to face with community was when I was in 2019. I was nominated by my company to go visit Salesforce, and it was a very big moment for me because it felt like I'm going to Disneyland, although I haven't visited there yet. So, but everything went through. I was making, connections on Twitter, left, right, and center, making friends, making lists, these peoples to meet on Dreamforce, etc., etc. And then the day came for the visa interview, and it got rejected. So that was the first time that I went on Twitter and I was ranting about, how excited I was, and that's when I kind of met the community, and they motivated me, and then they supported me, and then helped me out to look at the other side of the picture. And then I was like, I was able to see it because I was so demotivated at that point that I was like, my I was on the verge of losing even interest in Salesforce because it was that kind of a blow. So that's where I found the community, and my suggestions for anybody who is joining in is just to ask whatever you are struggling with. Don't feel alone,
Yeah.
because every time you ask, you get the help you need. Just another thing on the flip side of it would be to be really respectful of the other person's time as well, and be really clear in your communication on what you exactly require. And then on the other side, like, why am I passionate about Salesforce, or how it fitted in my story? So I when I was graduating, and when the graduation happened and everything, so I was not much looking forward to the next phase, because I had at that point, and I still do, I have different kind of mobility issues, because of which I knew that I won't be able to go on and take up any traditional jobs, for instance. So, and then that was the time in that hopelessness that I found Salesforce, and I started working on it. And then every year passed, and it's been 4 years so far, and it is the true example of too true, too good, and then true as well. So I just want to the passionate about why am I passionate about it is that I can kind of extend the same platform to other women around me, and also to other people, and I know how it could benefit them in many ways. So that's why I'm passionate about it, and I'm just tiptoeing around it to kind of make those opportunities for other people.
That's great. And just kind of really quickly, just came into my head when you were talking about kind of like starting up something. That bit really actually resonates with myself, because that was how I got involved in the community. Because at the time there wasn't anything in Newcastle, wasn't anything in the Northeast region, and so that was kind of my son. In fact, my very first community event was actually me speaking at Inspire East, and that was my first time I've been to a community event, was that. But I resonate with that point where, because sometimes we might take it a little bit for granted that there is a community group in our area, and on one side in 2021 where the majority of groups are still meeting virtually, it's much easier to connect now to events in some regard to what it was, say, 2 years ago when I was looking at setting up a group. But when we get back to more normalcy and we start doing more in-person events, we'll might go back to that kind of model where it's, if there's not a group in your area, it's going to be harder to get to one. You know, if you have to travel, like you mentioned, it was like 1,000 kilometers away from where you were. You know, like as much as I love the community, like my second community event I attended was the first community group that Jonathan led over in Leeds, and that's a couple of hours away from me. Where, you know, doing that every month or whatever, it's a big ask. So I think that's a really good point as well. You know, virtually it's great because you can connect anywhere in the world. But as we get back to more in-person stuff, these kind of things are also worth bearing in mind for people getting involved in the community. So it's like, you know, how far are you able and willing to travel? And also, if there's nothing in your area, why can't you start something? You know, we've talked about all that before. You know, it came up a few times in the feedback about not having to necessarily be an expert in Salesforce to lead a community group. And in fact, one of the things I would also add to that is by me starting out as a community group leader, I've actually learned more about Salesforce through being a community group leader than I knew before. So, you know, there's those two sides to that coin as well. But going back to the question we were going with before, but I'm a little bit conscious that we haven't heard from Rohan much for a little bit.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you would like to raise on these points?
Yeah, so one thing I would like to share is like every one of you like is saying that they have went to some amazing local community group event. So when I started out with Salesforce, I learned mainly through Trailhead and my office project. So when I got to know about the Salesforce community, the pandemic had already started. So I had seen that people have gone to such meetings and had some great sessions and all, but I never really got to experience it. Like I have been running a lot of events virtually, and it is really exciting. So I can only imagine the joy and the happiness that you all must have, received when you would have went to your first like Salesforce event and saw like the people who are so well known speaking there. Just get to know them is really great. So all these things we can do now also, and I think it is a bit easier now. Like you can just log into your laptop and you can connect to anyone in the world. Like you can attend any community event. So like as many people are listening to us now, so they can easily reach out to us and ask their doubts. So I think it is convenient, but yeah, the happiness and joy of in-person events cannot be replaced, and I will really love to experience it. So in my college life, I was greatly involved in data science and AI. So when I heard the term Salesforce, as many of us might have felt, like I uh, related it with something to sales. So initially I was a bit hesitant that I don't want to do this, but then I got to know about what it actually does and what it actually is capable of. So yeah, so that is really interesting. Yeah, and slowly I started posting about my progress, like when I became a ranger, when I earned some super badge, when I earned some certification, and people were so much supportive. So I was taken aback by the kind of love and support I received. So I would just encourage any newcomer that is coming to the community to, yeah, just don't be afraid and post whatever you want to. Like even if you are not sure about it, just give your opinion about it, and you will be greatly supported and helped by the community. Yeah.
Should we move to Claire's question, Mark? I'm desperate to say something about my thing for change, but I'm not going to. It's the we'll let some of the questions come through, and maybe I'll get a chance later. But Claire raised a really good question.
Definitely, yeah.
And the one which I think is a valid question. I would ask the same thing. Claire asked, will I ever reach a point where I'm not studying for an exam? And it'd be interesting to see how others on the call feel about that.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good question before we kind of pass on, because if my maths is correct, across the panel, there's a combined 46 certifications across all of the panelists. So that's not including anybody else on the call who's also certified today. So we might be pushing a lot higher than that. So I didn't include Luke's 5 certifications. I think you've got, Luke, is it? And then my 1. But 46 certifications across the panelists. But yeah, I think it's a really great question. So
do people feel the same? Do people have the same, not anxiety, but do people have the same question? Do other people feel it?
I
If I
have,
can add to it,
JB.
Go ahead, Janet.
It's interesting because I've reached a point where, so we all know that there's this big push in the ecosystem for everybody to get certifications. And I was definitely on that train once I realized I wanted to be an architect. It was like I had this goal in mind and there was a reason for me to get certain certifications. At the time I was working in-house, so I wasn't getting the consultant certifications. I had a path. So now I've reached that and I'm stepping back and thinking, okay, I'm sort of a competitive person. I would love to go and get more certifications, which I probably will, but I have to think to myself, am I getting those because there's an end in mind, or am I just trying to up like the count of certifications that I have? So for me, I think it's like identifying the goal, like why are you getting the certifications? How is it either helping you in your current job or maybe a goal that you have for another position? I think that's the way to approach it, so that you're not just constantly like trying to get more certifications.
Agree to that. And to me, growth has no limit. So if you want to learn more clouds and be a consultant and a professional across all the clouds, then even if somebody is not working on that particular cloud, it gives us some knowledge knowledge about that particular cloud when you prepare for the certifications. No matter whether you are clearing the certification or not, the learning process, it gains a lot of information and it helps us to be capable of handling multiple tasks at work. So I when I set some goals, the certification goals for the year, I would keep the goal to be optimistic, not too over optimistic that it will I have to give up my personal life or give up some of the other things. So maybe like 2 or 3 certifications a year. And this year I haven't done any certification because I was so active in the community that I was conducting many boot camps. I did not get time. But at the first of the year, I set some goals which I'm not able to reach, but maybe at the end of the year, I would be able to at least reach one of those. So I also see some people following this. I felt this is really helpful. So take a sabbatical, like take a break from all the community events, from the certification study as well. Just take a break of 1 month or 15 days or whatever that you require, and make sure that you give enough time to your family. So that way you're not too overwhelmed as well. So I found this really interesting, and maybe I will implement it sometime.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And just to build on that, like, I think I think of it like a development pie chart. And I think individually you've got to know how you like to develop yourself. So one piece of that pie could be certifications. Some of it could be experience on the job. 3 could be mentoring or guidance or reading or blogging. You know, I think when you look at all of the activities you might encounter on a day-to-day where you develop, just make sure the pie fits you. It's, you know, I did it when I started out, right? I've just got my admin cert. Well, I best get format builder. I've worked on Sales Cloud. I should formalize that. Well, I best do Service Cloud as well. And I did it when I was starting out because I was like, I have to get them to be at a certain level. And I think that's natural. But then more often, the UX cert was one where it popped up and I was like, I really want that because I've done a lot of learning in that area. I think I feel the pressure as well, but the same with JB in the development plan at the beginning of the year. Set out some loose plans around what you want to achieve, but keep evaluating it because you'll change quite a lot over a year, and just make sure it fits what you want to do. I think there'll always be that pressure. Salesforce is so big and so many people working in it, you always feel that pressure. You know, if you just go on Twitter or LinkedIn and you'll see how many people are getting certs, and you just almost have to resist it and think, you know, evaluate. You'll perhaps be getting another really good learning on a day-to-day basis that might not equate to a certification, but perhaps can be just as valuable.
Yeah, and there's a very practical side as well, which is. Go on, Jonathan.
Sorry, Mark, for that. Okay, I would just look at a really great point there, that it has to fit the individual. It has to work for you. Now, this will sound a really diplomatic answer. It doesn't necessarily matter how many certifications you've got. That doesn't define you. Yes, if you are interested in getting certifications, then study until the cows come home and get your certification, because that's a great achievement and there's no taking away from that achievement. But there are countless number of people in the Trailblazer community. All you have to do is go on the Answers community and have a look at their profiles. People out there that actually don't have a great deal of certifications, and why? Because they don't need it. They don't need to prove to anyone. You know, they've got the skills. So what's a certification to them? Maybe to them it's just a piece of paper, but to other people, it is an achievement. It's a you know, it's a validation. People, it actually makes a difference in their job role. Their employer requires them to do it, or they need it for X, Y, and Z at their role. So it means something different to every person. And what I mean by this might sound like a diplomatic answer is because of the next point is, don't compare yourself to somebody else. Just because you've got and someone else has 10 and somebody else has 20 doesn't make them. And it works throughout the community. And in fact, it actually works internally at Salesforce. If I had a question and I ask somebody, there's a good chance that one of the directors might pop me an answer. But there's also a good chance that one of the associates might also answer the question. And just because of their level doesn't mean, you know, everyone's got a valid input and has different experiences and different knowledge from different areas. So if you want the certifications, I would say go get them. But if you feel it's pressure and, you know, it's taking up time and you've got no work-life balance, you want to spend some time with your family, don't let certifications rule your career and rule your, you know, your progress throughout the Salesforce ecosystem.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
thing
that's
I
great.
would like to say is yeah, I completely agree with Jonathan's point, but like certification can really be beneficial to us. Like it can help us to, you know, turn our aspiration or dream into a calculated path. Like we always want to study about different things. We always want to learn about different things, but we have also got our office work, our personal life, and so many other commitments. But once we sign up for a certification and we know it is after 2 or 3 weeks, then anyway we'll find out time, we will catch some time for ourselves so that we can actually focus and study to pass that certification. So I think at that time we cannot give any excuse for that. So that I think is really helpful to accelerate the learning. So I think if anyone is trying to gain certification for the sole purpose of learning and advancing their knowledge, then it is greatly beneficial for them.
I would just like to share my insight a little bit on it. So initially, I think every time you open, when you're new to the ecosystem, you don't have any certifications, or you have one certification, or that sort of thing. And then you go to Twitter, you go to LinkedIn, and you see everybody, 15 times certified, 5 times certified. You kind of initially you give in to that pressure, but the thing to kind of you need to keep reminding yourself is that if I get 18 certifications, for instance, I cannot replicate, let's say, Jonathan's journey, or I cannot be Jonathan, for instance. I have my own personal journey. And if you try to kind of match up to other people, or kind of replicate it, you will be burnt out in the process. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be kind with yourself and say, okay, this is my goal, this is what actually my journey is, and I'll plan it accordingly. If you think doing 5 certifications within a year is not what you can handle right now, so don't do it. But I would not say just to leave it aside, as Cheryl had a great advice on this, to set aside 15 or 10 minutes every day. Don't stop learning, but adjust the pace according to what you have on your plate, on that week, on that month. Don't stop learning, keep learning, but don't compare yourself. Again, it sounds diplomatic and easy, but that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think these are all really good points with regards to certifications. And one thing that I think is also worth noting is there are some amazing people in the community who have 0 certifications and have done really amazing work for themselves in the industry and have done really great contributions in the community. What I think I would add onto the certification point, though, is trying to be as objective as I can. If you have one or more certifications, it can make it a bit easier into getting into things like interviews if you're looking for career progress and stuff like that. So really, all these points are correct. But I'd also kind of say that point of going, the reality is, if you've got a certification, you're going to get more interest in you potentially from other employers as well. So that's one thing to consider with that point if you're looking for at a career development perspective. But again, totally, you might have go for a year where you do 5 or 6 certifications. The next year you might do 2. The year after that you might do 1 or 0. It just depends on kind of what you've got going, and also how many times you have to do resits and things like that as well. Because I've sat now. I've done 3 exam sittings now, but I've only passed once. So, so there's that side of it as well. How many times do you do a resit as well?
I like. Sorry, Mark.
Go for it, Luke.
I was just about to say I like JB's point about a sabbatical, and I like Paul's earlier point about just asking where you were in your life and/or career at the time. And I think both of them are about reflection and about self-awareness and about understanding what's on your plate. Like Karat said, and I think it's good to check in with that. I did it. I chased certs early when I needed to initially to get to a level playing field. My attitude's changed now because I'm working in. I guess I knew a lot about very little. I found, when I moved into consulting, I learned more. I've worked in some really good project teams, so I've got a really good relationship at the minute with a developer who's super smart. So when we get to the point of solutioning something, I love that conversation because I'm like, I think we could do it this, and this way. And there's all the back and forth of, no, that I don't think that would work because of these limits. We constantly have a dialogue back and forth about the approach to solutioning. I've learned so much in that I could have studied a certain way. Them interactions are really good. You could be a really great team player. You could lead meetings. There's just all these different attributes that make up, to what you do in the certification. But I think checking in with yourself. What do I enjoy? Where do I thrive? How much time have I really got to dedicate to things? Am I too ambitious in timelines? Just be kind to yourself in what you've got going on. Make sure it works for how you like to work.
Definitely. And the only other factor I'd add to that is that also part of it depends on what organization you work for as well. Because practically some organizations do ask you to do a certain amount of certifications a year, or they'll go, this new cert's out and we would like you to do that. Some organizations out there do that as well. So there's that side of the coin as well.
Can I just say where the question came from, really? I wouldn't say that I actually put pressure on myself, and I actually don't really compare myself with anyone else either. But I'm quite competitive with myself, if you know what I mean. And at work, we're going to be launching 3 new clouds. So I'm like, 3 clouds. I mean, obviously I have to get each of those exams, right? And there's 2 clouds there already, and I haven't got any cloud exams yet. So I feel like that's actually 5 that are basically lined up for me. And, I mean, actually it's fine. I'm going on maternity leave in December. So I could happily do that in a year. It wouldn't be too hard. And that's okay. And it's not really a lot of pressure. I might do it or I might not. I'll put some effort towards it and we'll see what happens. But interestingly, compared with my old career, my old industry, where really there wasn't anything to acquire, I could only really acquire experience, and maybe other people's opinions about me was something that I could build a little bit. And so it's just a really different way of life, I think, in this, for me, it's completely different that I can now plan the next 3 years of my time, basically, if I wanted to. And it's just interesting to hear what everybody else does. And I think 1 year at a time is probably very good advice. Thank you, JB.
Indeed. So I suppose kind of following on from that question, we had, one of the questions, topics that we thought might be good to cover is around aspirations in the community. And this, I know this kind of on social media, on Twitter, if you look at some of the Twitter threads that go out there, could become a very contested topic. But the point of the question I was kind of want to raise is there's obviously a lot of things that you can do in the community, and there's lots of different honors that you can be bestowed. Your MVP, Golden Hoodie, for example, of that. But what do you think about people who, or what do you think of people aspiring to get a Golden Hoodie, to become an MVP? Those kind of things. Do you think that's okay? If so, do you think there's any kind of caveats you'd have to put onto that in terms of like what maybe are the motivations behind wanting to aspire to such a thing? It's just something I'm conscious of because I see it often on social media. People going, "Oh, I want to be an MVP," or "I want to be get a Golden Hoodie," and I go back and forth in my head going, "Why?" is my usual question. Why do you want that? But thought might throw that out to the panel, see kind of what we thought of that kind of idea.
So I asked like a similar question to one of my mentors some time back, like how one can be an MVP or a golden hoodie winner. So he gave a very good answer, that one should not aspire to contribute to the community just to be rewarded with a golden hoodie or a MVP tag. Like one should just keep on giving, and these things will just happen in their own time. So I think that is what I want to aim at, just to keep on helping and keep on learning without much expectation about the reward, is what I would say.
I'll put a little bit of an opinion in, but it's a topic that it's a difficult one. It's a challenge. There are opposite opinions, strong opinions, and there's everything in between. And I don't think you've got a right or wrong answer. I think it's very dependent on the person, how they look at it, how they view what a Golden Hoodie or MVP. The difference is, I mean, Golden Hoodie is about, transformation and what you've achieved in the ecosystem and how you've gotten to where you are and the impacts you made. MVP is about how you contribute to your experience, sharing it amongst people and helping others. Are they something to aspire for? Well, you can aspire for absolutely anything. Did I personally aspire for the Golden Hoodie? No. But it's something that I was awarded. Would it have changed? Should I let it change my direction? Should I let it influence me? I personally said no. I didn't want to have that as a goal. I did what I did in the community because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed helping others. I enjoyed learning the platform. I enjoyed transforming my life into what it is now and sharing that amongst others. Some people use it as a target, and see it as a springboard of, well, if I aim for MVP, in the process I have to help a large number of people. I have to learn the ecosystem, I have to learn the platform. That's not necessarily a bad thing either. I think it's very much dependent on the person. Me personally, I couldn't use it as a thing, as a goal, because to me, what that meant to me was I was only doing something to get something in return. Mm-hmm. I didn't do that. I only ever gave back to the community because I wanted to. I never wanted to return anything in return. And if I got something in return, friendships, a job offer, they were great kind of, byproducts of help. Well, if you are inclined and you want to use it as a springboard, then there's nothing wrong with doing that either. Down to your personality and what motivates you.
Yeah, and that, to be honest, that's a question I'd like to put back to the panel if I could. So you all are active in the community in a lot of ways. You're given that free time, you're engaged. What's your motivation? What drives you then to, Jonathan, you've given a few examples of things that drive you, but what motivates you to give up that free time to be involved in community? What motivates you to join us on this call to share your story with the user group? I'd be really interested into insight on that from the panel.
If it is okay, I can share about what motivates me as a person. So I would say I had a younger brother who is 2 years younger than me, and I have been his teacher for as long as I could remember. So I have that inbuilt thing in me that if you're asking for help, I'll help you. Even if you don't ask for help, I will still help you because I cannot help the help, if that makes sense. So my motivation really is to kind of share the knowledge that I have. So, because I strongly believe in the fact that somebody is at the place where I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago. And whatever I know, even if I know how to log into a sandbox, that could help somebody, even if it is not, some top-notch technical thing. So my motivation is primarily that. And then the second motivation I always heard from my parents as well, that if you're helping somebody, I mean it is very uh, often said around it, if you really want to help somebody, tell them how to fish instead of giving them the fish so they can do it better for themselves. So my motivation is really that, so I can tell more people about Salesforce. If they're blocked somewhere where I can help them out, kind of motivate them, because initially it is very overwhelming, regardless how beautiful Trailhead is. But if you're joining in for the first time, it is just like being lost in a maze. So my motivation is really that first I kind of let people know that this is a thing, and then if they are stuck somewhere, I just help them and be the person for them that somebody was for me. So my real motivation is this. I'm sure it sounds very sugar coated, but
No, that's
that's
very
really is.
cool.
But that
Yeah,
really is the motivation for me.
thank you.
I can go and talk about that. Something interesting as I was preparing for this, I go through cycles of this has to do with the community, being super motivated and then sometimes being a little burnout. I've been doing it for 3 years. User groups, a lot of work. Salesforce Saturday, there's a lot of it admin, reaching out to people. There's a lot of work involved. And sometimes I'm really excited about it. And I'll be truthful. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I've gotten myself into too many things. Like, what am I doing? But what's so interesting to me, this happened to me this week, is that for me being involved in the community is just the support and the motivation I get from people, because I'll be sort of down and burnt out or whatever, and then I'll go on Twitter and somebody's passed a certification or somebody's excited about something else, and that motivates me. So I think there's this sort of symbiotic relationship of being involved in the community to motivate me. And then I think maybe if I post something inspirational or something I accomplished or congratulating somebody else, that will sort of help that train of motivation. So that's really one of the reasons I'm involved. I've gotten so much out of the community that I really want to share that experience with other people and hope that it has the same impact on them.
Nice.
Yeah, I think there's something really just special about being able to tell others, isn't there, really? And one of the questions I kind of had in my head, which was kind of mini titled, was JB on this one, which was tied to Impact Force, was I think one of the things that I've done, I did this year, was kind of look at kind of what maybe things could be done for the community that weren't already being done or weren't being done too much. And so this year I've been doing a series on soft skills throughout the month of August, which has been really, really interesting to do. But in complete transparency, that wasn't an original idea. That came from going to Impact Force and going to some of the sessions that JB was hosting over there at Impact Force, along with conversations with non-profit dreaming, just talking to people and seeing the kind of the things that they were coming out with, where there's been a big outcry kind of going, we get loads of stuff on like the technical side of stuff, but what about the like the soft skills side of things. So I thought maybe could pass this question a bit over to JB, but as well, I'm also looking at the call, and Janet's actually spoken at one of the Impact 4 sessions, which was a really great presentation there. But like, how do you think that kind of side of things fits in? Like, kind of finding something that there's a need for in the community for us to bring, and then bringing that.
Talk to it. And I'm glad to know that Mark, Impact Force has been the motivation for starting this series. So the kind of I have been looking at the community, and there were many technical sessions that were happening, but not any sessions that were conducted on the soft skills. And we may not be on the same level when considering the soft skills. We all come from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different learning experiences. So we're not on the same level, and each of us needs to own our soft skills no matter where we are in our career journey. So I started with a few people who I know of, Janet being one of the first few speakers, and Melissa. So they had the confidence in me, and they readily agreed. And there was never a time that I reached out to one person and they said no. So the community is always amazing, and they have been eagerly waiting to help. So I got a lot of help, and how I came up on the kind of sessions that I am going to conduct is depending on the need of the community. Let's say there was the Salesforce Career Fair happening, then I got in touch with Ben Dunker from the Talent Hub, and I asked him to provide some tips on resume preparation and how to prepare for the interviews. And Justin Dux, he conducted some interviews, and some of the people who are attending the career fair, they got benefited from that. And all the further sessions were from the CEO, let's say from Lev, Michael Burton. I reached out to him, and he readily agreed. And Days Work CEO Shivnath, he agreed, and he presented. And it was very great to know, to learn from such amazing people. And also, whatever I did, I looked at what the community is going to get out of it. It's not simply like I have this session in mind I'm doing, but I'll just look how it's going to help the community. So that way it has been helpful, and it has been well received so far.
That's great. Cheers. Thanks, JB, for that. Yeah, so I really like that point about kind of like looking at what the community needs and actually bringing people in, because we've got so many people around the community who are amazing voices. You know, we've got, say, like five of them here tonight, and you're barely hitting the tip of the iceberg in terms of like just how great the community is around us. So we're just looking to see if we've got any more questions in the chat. I don't see any questions coming through.
Yeah, so I would like to ask one question from the panel. So like, as I'm not very much experienced, I would say as compared to you. So like, if I were to ask, like, if there was anything that you could have done differently, so what would it be to someone just entering, or someone with around, suppose, say, less experience in Salesforce? Like, what could you have done differently to, yeah, to
Gotten involved with the community earlier. I mean, I've been in it for 10 years, and I didn't start until like 3 or 4 years ago. And the transformation that I've been able to accomplish in my career over those 3 or 4 years is so much different than the prior like 6 years.
I wish I'd probably owned my personality. I think, you know, at the beginning, right at the very, very beginning, first system, I looked and I said, oh, I'm just this soldier, I can't fit in, and kind of around personalities I saw the ecosystem and thought, let's mold it and be like, and it worked too well because that isn't me. Started off very kind of introvert and had anxiety, and that's not a bad thing. Use it to use it to your benefit and let it empower you rather than kind of hinder you. So I would say own your personality and just be you, because as we've said many times, the will that, and will you could be the loudest person in the room or the quietest person in the room. You are just as equal in and welcome in the community. In the
I would say just to if I were to kind of go back and tell something to myself, it would be to stop doubting myself and just go for whatever I want to go for. Because there is no perfect or ideal time. Once you started, you can make it to the end, but to make it to the end, you have to start somewhere. So that's what I would tell myself.
And I would
Yeah.
add to that, don't hesitate and don't self-limit yourself. So don't hesitate to ask for help, and ask for mentorship, and also don't hesitate to offer help as well. You can get started as little as you can do now, and then you can eventually increase your engagement in the community. So don't ever stop yourself, don't self-doubt.
Yeah, I think ask for help. Don't assume as well. Don't build try not to build a preconceived ideas of how different things are, or what by self-limiting, the same as what JB says, and try to find the confidence to express the things that you like or what you want to do. You can find a way if you know where you perform well. Trying to find the confidence to vocalize it, to tell somebody, because it's difficult for somebody to know you might be in a position where you might not be challenged or fulfilled or need help if you can't express it. So again, that's easier said than done in a lot of ways, but try to find ways to communicate what you're facing, share it with people, talk it out, express an ambition, yeah.
And remember, don't plan to be perfect the first time itself. You will gradually improve along the process. The first session that I have attended as a speaker, it may not be perfect. I might have made many mistakes, but gradually along the process, I have improved myself a lot. The same way, I waited a long time, for almost a year. I wanted to create some informational videos on Marketing Cloud, but I was looking for the perfect video setup, perfect audio setup, and the background, everything. So I delayed it for 1 year, looking for perfection. And then I lost 1 year in that process. So, and later I got started with the user group meeting recordings, and then it gradually went on, and I gained the confidence. So until you start doing something, you'll not gain the confidence. So don't try to be perfect the first time itself.
Yeah, I think just kind of on to that kind of point, there's a point where it's never too late to start. So, if you've been in the ecosystem, 10 years and you get involved 10 years in, isn't is trying to figure out a word. That's not an issue, that's not a problem. It's basically what I'm saying on that point. Whether you've been in 6 months, 6 years, 16 years, whatever, the important thing is about getting involved, really. And I look at that, and just going on to the point about being the expert. So, I've been doing some mentorship throughout this year, and there's been times where someone's asked me a question, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know. I honestly don't have an answer for you. But that's given me motivation to go away and actually work on those things. So, that might sound a little bit selfish on one side, but when you kind of doing stuff in the community, helping support others, it can also benefit you by giving you opportunities to learn more, to get better, grow your skills, and to also, along the way, find out what you're passionate about within Salesforce itself as a product. So you might find that you don't like, you might be more on the developer side, and you might really like Apex. You might really like Flow, you might really like CPQ or Marketing Cloud and what have you, but being involved can often act as a springboard to actually finding out what you're passionate about and then bringing that to the table to support others who are wanting to learn about those things as well. So I'm just looking through. I don't see any more questions coming in, and we are getting a bit close to time. So we do normally finish around 7:30. But Luke, is there any kind of final question you think we can throw out or ask?
No, I mean, question-wise, I think we're good. I think we've covered a wide range of topics, naturally, and some of the ones we've guided as well. I think there's been some great points that have, been raised by the panel and the guests as well. I mean, I don't really have anything in addition to add to raise now. We've got a little bit of time left if there's anything else coming from the group. But I think it's really cool. I just appreciate you joining to involve the conversation. I've enjoyed it myself. I think so many of the points are valid, as me and Mark being relatively new to our community engagement, and I think it's just cool we can meet up to do this. And I think, like I say, we'll continue to try to put on a platform to hear more stories as well, and from different groups of people. And for those that are starting out looking for a place to get involved, if you want to come speak at one of our events in the future, let us know. We work something out. We'll help you guys transition into anything like that. And yeah, I'm pleased to have made some new connections.
Definitely, and kind of add from my point of view, it's great to be able to do an event like this, because really this is what it's about to me anyway, kind of thing. So we can do all of the technical events that we want, covering all the technical themes, but that's kind of sits above what this is here tonight, where it's kind of like, what does the community need? How can we support the community? And we do that by doing things like running the user group events on the different technical topics, doing sessions on soft skills, doing all these different things. It's been really great just to be around and be seeing like so many people who I've looked up to for quite a while, and kind of hearing your stories. And as Luke says, if there's anybody who's here tonight who wants to speak at a future session, we will be allowing to do that, and we will be looking for people to do that. Most user group leaders will tell you that we're always crying out for good speakers, because we want really great content to be delivered, and sometimes the best way for that to happen is for the group leader to let somebody else have to take the floor. And as well, it gives people an opportunity to do things like learn public speaking skills and to improve in that kind of way. Because one of the things I often say is the best teacher is experience. So there's that side of it as well. But if you are,
I was going to say, if we're really struggling, I'll give you the 10 mistakes I've learned in my 10 months of moving to consulting. 10 times I've been burned as a consultant starting out. There's some useful things in there for anyone considering to transition to it. There's some definite watch outs.
You've said that on the recording now, Luke. You might have to do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to say kudos to Mark and Luke, because I know as a community group leader, it's such a risk to put out a meeting idea and just hope like people show up and the speakers work out. Like, it's a big risk. And so I give you kudos for like taking that on, just putting yourself out there and taking that on. And look what a great event and series you guys have started. It's awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And as go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to say, go on, JP, because I was just going to pull up on Jonathan's point for a second, but you go first.
No, I would like to appreciate you guys as a user group leader as well. I know how much of effort goes into organizing one single event, and especially a panel like this, coordinating with multiple speakers. It's not easy. And I really appreciate for all the efforts and getting this great content out to the community.
No problem at all.
Thanks, Jamie. I think a big thank you goes out to all of you on the panel. This panel, obviously, the sounds the panel wouldn't happen if we didn't have the panelists come. And, we've had a really great panel this evening, so we can't really say thank you enough for that. I think what Jonathan's put on the chat might be a good idea, but we'll see if we can do it, which is to grab an obligatory I can't pronounce that word. Screenshot. So should I try grab a screenshot for anybody who wants to have their lovely faces on a
It's got
picture
a
from
whole
this
smile
evening?
now for a long time. Let's put, yeah.
Let's see.
I
Right,
don't
I'm
know.
going to.
Are you going to do a countdown? Because I feel like I'm smiling for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say my jaw's hurting already.
Yeah. I'm making sure I'm getting my screen grab working.
Go advertise.
Do we have to do the noise as well? I think we should all do that noise that you just did, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll
I've learned
count
it
down.
doesn't have a smile.
So we'll count down then, shall we?
Oh, we haven't done it yet.
So, yeah. So 3, 2, 1. There you go. Let's see if that's worked. There you go. So I've got that screenshot and I'll save that and we'll share that after the event. But again, just want to say again, really big thank you to everybody who's been here tonight. It has been a great event, I think. Probably one of my favorite ones to do so far, and because I really enjoy this kind of side of the community. You know, like one of the best things I find of going to the conferences is not necessarily even the sessions themselves, which yes, the sessions are fantastic. Let's not kind of lie about that. But one of the things I find is often the more enjoyable thing is actually getting to know people and the conversations that come out from meeting people at these events. And so this has been fantastic.
And for anyone that's new to the group, you're welcomed as an honorary member of the Newcastle group. You're always welcome back. You know, we try to promote what we do in the future, so you feel free, if time allows and you willing, please come back and join us, and we hope to do the same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as we're kind of wrapping up, we've only got really a few very brief announcements to mention, which we'll mention on the recording, just for those who haven't been able to be here this evening. So we are doing a session next month, which is due to take place on, let me check my calendar days, make sure I get the date right. It is due to take place on the 30th of September. We moved it back a week because of Dreamforce happening the week before. But the next month, we're going to be actually talking all about certifications, and the topic is going to be around mapping a certification journey. And we're going to be joined by Vicky Moritz Henry from Supermoms, who does a lot of this kind of work with Supermoms who take part in the program. And that's going to be a really great session. And then in October, we've got our next Making an Impact event, which is a panel with a variety of Salesforce MVPs, which we thought, because originally we had 10 people originally potentially lined up for this panel, and we just decided to kind of politely ask the MVPs if we could knock them back a couple of months, because we had our September event organized. And then, so we're going to have an MVP panel in October, because first week of November, the nominations open up for the next round of MVP, so it's a bit timely on that. Other than that, didn't really have any major announcements, but I did want to put one link in the chat, which is something that Kurt mentioned earlier on. I'm trying to actually get my links to work now, which is Pack Dreaming. So it's going to be a great virtual conference. There's a load of really great sessions. It's happening across the whole of the day. It is a Saturday for us here in the UK. But have a look at the link we've just put in the chat there. It's free, it's virtual, and it's going to be a really great day full of lots of great sessions. There's some ones that really do look interesting. That's on that list there. Other than that, Luke, did you have any other things?
No,
like
nothing from me, mate. I think you've covered everything, and nothing else to add. So we finished on time, 3 minutes ahead. It's not bad, is it? We're doing okay.
It's
a bit of the evening back.
Great. Yes. So I'll stop the recording here, and I'm going to just say, as we stop the recording, thank you everybody for coming, and we hope to see you at our next session.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see everyone.